My favorite part of Jim's website was the very first line in his biography section, and it said that Jim is unashamedly pro-life. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Lee.
Good evening. I'm deeply grateful to be here this evening with those who lead and fight in the battle for the sanctity of life. Let me ask you, do you believe that we are today a better, more enlightened and honorable society and a culture than we were 45 years ago? Given the wake of damage and destruction we've seen since the eviction of God from our schools in 1962 and 1963, and the legalization of abortion in 1973, I believe that we are not. Yet, like energy policy in this country, we've been talking about the issue of life for decades, and not much has effectively changed. One of the reasons I believe that nothing has changed is because of the way the argument is being formatted and the passive nature in which we engage in the debate. The debate is not about the right to choose. It's about the right to life. It's about the preeminent issue through which all other issues are evaluated, whether we're talking about Social Security, health care, criminal justice, social welfare, you name it. We must more energetically present our pro-life position differently. I suggest that we consider the political perspective. Political in this context means the behavior of civil government. Our founding fathers, rightly inspired, I believe, by divine providence, saw clear in the midst of all the madness of the revolutionary matters going on around them to pen a Declaration of Independence that acknowledged as self-evident the unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as endowed by their Creator. Setting aside for just one moment the matter of the Creator, which I'll come back to, politically speaking, the issue of life is unarguably a civil right. Our founders didn't establish a right to viable life, or the outside of the womb, or life based on some other qualification. They didn't disqualify the right to life to those in a certain stage of life, such as the infirmed, the disabled, the aged, the preborn, and the like. Our founders established a right to life, and they placed it first in the Declaration because without life, the other two rights are moot. They also ensured through the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution, if I may paraphrase, that the powers and/or rights not prohibited by the states or delegated to the federal government are retained by and belong to the people. Word to the Supreme Court of the United States, read the Constitution. They also made it clear that they wanted to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Their posterity were their children. We have no government armed in power, capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion. Our Constitution was made only for a religious and moral people, and is wholly inadequate for the government of any other. Our second president, John Adams. Our founders acknowledged this. You cannot separate the foundation of this country and its Constitution from morality any more than you can separate a beating heart from a living person. And an unborn child has a beating heart at 21 days. 21 days after conception. Conception when I believe, and I believe that God tells us, life begins. Psalm 139:13 says, "For you created my inmost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb." For those of us who approach the issue of life from a faith-based perspective, it is a matter of whether we will be judged by, in the end, for what we've done and for what we haven't done for the cause of the unborn. For those who approach the issue of life from a scientific perspective, the question is one of worldview and the source of truth. Now, I'm not a scientist, but I do know this much. Human life comes from life. Conception is the act of two living things coming together. Dead things don't reproduce. Hence, an embryo is alive. For those, like so much of our society, however, that approach the issue of life from a narrow, secular perspective, the question is simply a matter of whether society, through the government, should protect the right to life of our most innocent citizens. The Constitution tells us the answer to this question is an unequivocal yes. We are seeing before our very eyes the anticipated consequences of over 35 years of legalized abortion. We're seeing the harvesting of life for embryonic stem cell research. We're seeing the continued devaluation of human life. It's evidenced in the increase in suicide, in youth-on-youth violence, in the rise of pornography and the abuse of women in that industry. We see broken families and lives from the consequences of the devaluation of human life. The rates of divorce, the abandonments of children. We see all of these things. And numerically, we see 50 million lost lives of potential citizens, leaders, and innovators who may have had the solution to our energy problems, to our societal problems, who could have cured cancer. Who knows what we've lost? And now we have so-called healthcare reform that will serve to fund abortion with our tax dollars. Not to mention jeopardize the availability and quality of our healthcare for our senior citizens, for our infirmed, and for our prematurely born children. Imagine this scenario with me for just a minute. You're in a hospital in a major city. You're in the maternity ward, and at one end of the ward, you have doctors and nurses and volunteers moving heaven and earth to save the life of a premature child at 19 weeks, 2 days gestation, spending hundreds, if not millions of dollars trying to save that child. And yet at the other end, you have a doctor who is terminating the life of a completely viable and fully developed infant who just hasn't passed through the birth canal, spending maybe $5,000. Tell me, which of those two scenarios do you think will be part of a government-run healthcare system, given the current nature of the debate in Washington?